Well, hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. In this one I'm going to try a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to talk openly using terms like COVID, viruses and stuff like that to see how the censorship is going. It seems to me that the tide has turned and the draconian censorship and lockdowns and all those sorts of things have been confronted, as it were, and there is a pushback and they are relaxing a little bit, I think. So let's just see how that goes. The good thing is that as the tide has turned, it means that we are on the win. Yay, that's the positive part. Now the quarantining and all the scam that they perpetrated on us was a very good thing, I think, for me anyhow. It was extremely upsetting and sad at the number of people that died during it, though, with all of the jabs and the massive numbers. They're calculating around about 40% of the world's population has died through that. They're not telling us those statistics, but there are a certain number of people on the internet who are doing statistical analysis and what do you call those, the demographics and stuff like that, to try and figure out what the extent of the damage really was. Now, starting with New Zealand, which had a one database controlled by one person for the entire country, he let it slip or made it public, the number of deaths. In my hometown, there was one injection or one jab station that had a 100% death rate after 6 months. Now, the medical system and those that are controlling all of this try valiantly to brush it off, attribute to other things and everything, but it's slowly but surely coming out, the number of deaths that were there. And the average, I think, in New Zealand was around about the 40% of the population was killed with the jabs. Now, on top, the actual supposed COVID supposed virus, which does not actually exist, they managed to kill a serious number of people to generate the fear that they needed to make the quarantining justified and all that sort of thing. But overall, it seems that there were no real extra deaths than normal. They managed to basically murder the same number of people that were going to die through the common colds and various different things throughout the year, just like a normal year. But they managed to scandalize it enough to be able to make it look like a pandemic when it actually wasn't. So they didn't manage to murder, even though they did murder them in the hospitals, more than the normal. So the normal number of people died, but what did happen way above the normal, which is 40% of the world's population, were the injections, the jabs that they jabbed everybody with. Now, that's not taking into account the number of people that were injured by that and now are seriously ill, some of them for the rest of their lives probably. Now, it sounds rather scandalous to put a number, 40% of the world's population, but unfortunately that seems to be what the statisticians are coming out with. Some of far end of the scheme is China, for example. Now, put it on top of their demographics being a real problem anyway. Some are claiming that over 500 million people died through the whole process. Now, they say that, and here's an interesting thing, if you go researching on the internet and watch some statisticians who show how they come to their numbers via different ways they can measure it without the CCP telling them what the actual numbers are. They can figure it out by consumption and movement and all sorts of things, and imports and what happens within their economy. And they say that they used to have 1.4 billion people, 1,400 million, It turns out they've found 350 million fake people to do with buying and selling of properties, and then another 250 million fake students so that schools would get more funding, and then another 150 or something rather million people, fake people, people that had died or left the country and therefore but hadn't been declared. So it turns out that before the quarantining, it appears that they only had about 750 to 800 million. Now, some are saying they've lost between 300 to 500 million of during this whole quarantining and jabbing episode. And so they're really down to almost the same population as the United States. They have ghost cities, and one of their big industries at the moment is demolishing empty cities. And all along their frontiers, they are getting concerned, it seems, by the number of ghost towns on their frontiers, on their boundaries, which is a serious security risk for them. Now, that's only China. Look at all the other ones around the world, and we've got depopulation plummeting really fast all over the world. Now, the quarantining helped people like you to wake up to the fact that they've been lying to us and treating us crazy for quite a long time. And it took something like that for people like me and you to really wake up to the large scale that they're doing it and that they've done it, and to see how much power the corporates like BlackRock and all those guys, how much they control the planet and how much they are systematically milking us and killing us and making us sick and all those sorts of things. And that's a good thing, because you and I are waking up to that fact. There is quite a groundswell of people who are reacting against it. Those that are looking at alternative ways of medicine, for example, and finding out and realizing that it is our responsibility to be your own doctor, to figure it out. Because the majority, even though there are well-thinking, well-meaning people within the medical system, they're like these ex-shamans or ex-witch doctors that I know, who honestly got into being a witch doctor to try and help their community. And they thought that they were doing good until they finally woke up and found how bad they were poisoning their people, killing their people, enslaving their people, and all that sort of thing. And they got out of it, having found Jesus Christ being the main factor. Now, there are other areas of society where we're waking up without even knowing that we're waking up. The digital times, I think there is a group of people like myself that are starting to, even though we use technology and digital like we're doing right now over this internet connection and this video and everything, there is a groundswell of, hey, this has gone too far. Yes, it's useful. Yes, it has its things, but it must be controlled. And I think it's come to about its limits. In New Zealand, where I'm from, they tried to go paperless, and they gave all these tablets to all these students in the schools. Well, that only lasted as long as the battery, or as long as the kid dropped the thing and broke it and stuff. And they found it was too expensive to maintain. In the actual practicality of it, they found that the students, often their battery would go flat right in the middle of a class, or they didn't do their homework because the battery was flat and they had to put it on charge and all those sorts of things. And then eventually they came around to having to replace them, and then the parents weren't going to want to replace it. And so many schools in New Zealand have gone back to pen and paper. They've also realised that in doing so, they're dumbing their students down so that 60% of the New Zealand school-age kids can't even read and write. And then we've got AI, which is going to make it even worse. So the government forced the schools to dedicate at least 4 hours a week to teaching reading and writing. Another thing is I participate in a little writers group 7,000 kilometres away in New Zealand over the internet using the digital. But the interesting thing is that it's a writers group that are writing books, and they're literally printing them on paper again. And believe it or not, the printing industry is not dead. There are many, many people like my wife, as you can see behind me there, loves books. Just the fact that it's on a page, it doesn't need batteries. You can take it out anytime, stick a bookmark in and open it up, and there you are. You don't have to connect to any dubious connection. You don't need electricity to read a book and all that. So there is a groundswell of keeping books alive. Now, just recently, my son, who also is into 3D and computer stuff, and he writes code and maintains programs and all that, he did videos for a guy halfway around the planet, and this guy sent him at the end of his first album a vinyl LP, a cassette tape, and a CD. Now, that is also a very interesting thing. There's a groundswell of people who are finally realizing that the digital music industry is a nice promise, but I've heard of so many times when people go to a site to go get the music that they paid for, and it's gone. People are realizing that they don't actually own that music on Spotify and other places. And in my opinion, the CD was about the height of the music industry. It was good quality. Your discs lasted. I've got some that have lasted 20 years, and you actually owned the thing and could put it on as you choose, wherever you like, if your equipment's going to last. So I'm now looking around now. The fact that this guy was able to print an LP, my son said that the plastic has improved and the printing methods, but there are companies that are now going back to the older technology, the stable technology, the simple technology, and resuscitating some of that. I'm hoping that a lot of other things like that are going to come back. I hope they ditch the electronics in cars, and I hope they ditch electronics in domestic equipment like washing machines, make them repairable again. In fact, yesterday I just attended to someone's washing machine in our neighborhood here, and it's an old one, and it has a future. Because the digital ones, the digital goes and poof, you've got to throw the whole thing away. I was talking to motor rewinders, and they said there are extremely efficient ways of generating electricity, and these new electrical bikes and things. Those wheels are extremely, very interesting technology, but they make them budget on purpose, and they make motors to specifications so that they will burn out if you push them over the very narrow limit. Before, they used to have a lot of flexibility in how far you could push a motor, but they purposefully make them delicate, not for your benefit, but so that when it does burn out, they can blame the client, not themselves, and you have to buy a new one. We've talked about this before. Program redundancy is all over the place. There is a certain number of people that are pushing back on that as well, and I'm hoping that there are companies that will do that. In my little town over there in New Zealand, we have large forests. New Zealand, the Pinus radiata grows the best in New Zealand, and the best place in the world. They grow in half the time anywhere else, and so we have a good pine industry. We used to have a lot of small sawmills that kept a lot of people employed. Then they got bigger and bigger, and then they wiped out all the small ones and put in a corporate. And in our town, well, I just had notification that that corporate one are shutting down. In our little town, 142 lost jobs is half the town's economy. And so that one corporate that's shifting to the North Island of New Zealand because they are consolidating, they call it. Now, it's all about the bottom dollar, and they care nothing about human beings. And I wonder if there are going to be enough people who realize the deviousness of these corporates and start to control them. I've seen a number of videos that have outlined how the corporations got so powerful, because they were extremely, particularly in the United States it happened, where it was a new country and they didn't have experience with the corporates. So then the corporates got very big, then they went very international, and we had a couple of world wars and all sorts of things due to them. And because of all this thing and this catalyst of the quarantining, it seems that there is a very good groundswell of people who have woken up to the corporations and the way things function and the way that they have us enslaved without us even knowing it, so that we appear to be happy, but we are being milked like cows in a cowshed. So I'm very pleased actually, because I'm starting to see people going past that, and what I'm studying also is going past these lies. Once you figure out that a virus does not exist, it opens your world hugely to science, to what does actually make people sick, how the body actually does work, and then you start to find out a lot more if you can get rid of the concept of viruses and say they do not exist. The only virus we ever saw was the mRNA vaccine, supposedly. It was an artificial exosome, therefore a virus, under their own definition. And the definition of a virus does not exist. It applies to exosomes, which is what they made, an artificial exosome. So the only virus that ever exists now is the artificial exosomes that they are trying to make, or are making. So it opens up your mind to all these other things. It was amazing how the governments were able to dictate to their people against their wishes, illustrating the size and magnitude of the deception when it comes to government. It points out that the governments are no longer governments. They are on the payroll of the corporates. It revealed to me that there is not a single country in the world that is actually a country anymore. They're all corporatized. They're all businesses trading with Vanguard and BlackRock and those corporates. It's time that we took things back. It's time that we realized that it's our responsibility for our own health. It is time that we govern ourselves. It's time that we became countries again. It's time that we have our governments serve their people rather than the other way around. It's time that education actually educates rather than deceives and indoctrinates. And so all these things that I've been seeing around here is quite hopeful, really, because there's enough of you and me, and we work on it sufficiently and don't just step back and accept the status quo like we have done all our lives. Thank you to the quarantining, because it woke us up and it got us off our butts. And so now we need to join together and start to unite and strategize on how to take the corporates down, get back to being to countries, and all the other things that come underneath that. And with the demographic implosion, with the destruction of the world's population, the decimation of it, the corporates will get to a financial break line where they can no longer survive, and they will shut down. Or if you're a smart and valiant government, you will start to restrict them so that they will eventually shut down also. It's time to take our lives and the lives of our children and grandchildren back. And I'm actually starting to get quite positive about it. In the middle of negativity, there's always the silver lining to the cloud. So let's see how the algorithms handle this with a few words here like COVID and quarantining and all that sort of thing, and see if they don't shut this video down. So have a great day. I'm sure at least 24 people will see this before the algorithms find it, and then let's see if it stays up or not. Have a great day. Stay positive.